How's everyone doing? Good. Super hype up after Steve, I'm sure. I'm super honored to be speaking here at the first ever Dash Bash. It's really great to see all your masked faces after like a year and a half. But today I want to start with a little observation. I know that y'all are used to raising your hands now from Steve's presentation, so everyone's got some practice. But could you raise your hand if you've ever had like an inkling for an idea, for a passion project specifically, and it just sounded like way too big to take on your own? Anyone? Okay, yeah. That's like everyone here, basically. So I also, not surprisingly, have these inclinations and these inklings all the time. I'm in the same boat as you. It feels like there's sort of a rite of passage for the industry. You know, there's always this pressure to make something in your spare time, shout out into the virtual universe and say, "Look what I made, Mom." So this is what I want to dive into today. I'm going to share about my own experience creating a large-scale passion project and the lessons I've learned along the way, starting from the inkling, or the idea, all the way to the endeavor, or what I'll call like the in-depth process. And because we're still in the endeavor phase, the project isn't done yet, I won't actually be able to share the final thing with you, but this is kind of just like a teaser for what's to come, so get hyped, I guess. Okay, so as a freelance animation director, illustrator, and designer, I'm constantly surrounding myself with different types of artists, and I'm always in awe of their talents. And this happened about 2 years ago. I found myself so inspired by other people that I needed to challenge myself. I wanted to push my design style further, make my work better, and unfortunately, I do compare myself to a lot of people all the time, so I knew I had a decent range of visual work, but I just wanted to keep going and make myself better. So I had this small inkling in the back of my head to make something new and exciting. It's what I'll call my inkling, but I didn't want it to just come out of nowhere with no purpose. So I let that inkling sit there and fester as I continued on with my day-to-day freelance schedule. But one day in 2019, I was reading this book called Odd Girl Out by Rachel Simmons. It was actually recommended to me by my therapist. Woo. Yeah, she was helping me process some trauma at the time. It's actually a nonfiction psychology book, which I don't normally read. I'm more of like a comedy, romance novel kind of person. But this investigates the experience of schoolgirl bullying. So I actually don't read nonfiction very often, yeah, so that was new for me. And while I was reading it, something just clicked, you know? I never saw my own traumas laid out so clearly in front of me, and I never read about someone going through what I experienced as a young girl, because that's something that other women and girls or folks who experience this type of bullying tend to keep quiet about. So I started to connect the lines and dots between these stories in my life, and because I was now realizing that this was a common occurrence, schoolgirl bullying through words, rumors, and isolation, I knew I had to do something special to let others who experience this know that they're not alone. Or even just to connect with folks who had been on the other side of that experience and may now regret those past experiences. So, to better understand my story and now my passion project, which I'll be going further into, I want to tell you a little bit about my experience, so I'm going to take it down just a notch for a minute. But before that, I wanted to share this photo of me from 7th grade around the same time. I don't really want this to be a sob story, so just know that I was also doing this at the same time. I actually really wanted someone from backstage to throw me a hat, and then I could have, but it didn't happen. Okay, so I'm just gonna tell you a little bit about what happened with me. So when I was 7th grade, 2005, I was 13 years old, and I had friends one year, and then the next year when I started 7th grade, I was completely isolated. My best friends decided to turn on me. They started excluding me, calling me names, and terrorizing me over the internet and in person. It was a shitty year that I barely remember, but my mom remembers it way too well. But then in 8th grade, these same girls that were my bullies and my friends before that, they decided to turn around and become my friends again. And they kind of just like disregarded the past year. And I was way too scared to say anything about it, but I was also so happy to have my friends back that I just didn't call them out or defend myself. And to this day, I've only confronted one of those girls, one of those bullies, and it was really tough, and I kind of just chickened out in the end because I kind of like reverted back to my old ways. However, the people who bully others aren't always to blame. There's a lot of pressure in schools from adults, family, other students, traumas that people are experiencing that surround them as well. And that's something I'm learning as I grow older. So bullying is an invisible weapon. It can be beyond traumatic, can follow you long into adulthood, but it's also not just a schoolgirl phenomenon. Psychological bullying tends to be a lot more hidden than physical bullying, presented through gossip, isolation, sour notes passed from friend to friend. So this experience has plagued me with trust issues. It's exaggerated my perfectionism and people-pleasing qualities, and it also has led me to choose other toxic friendships in the past, not right now, that have created fresh wounds. And none of this is unique to me. Anyone can be subject to this type of bullying regardless of gender, race, ethnicity, class, or worldly location. In fact, after starting this project, I've connected with more and more people all over the world who have shared a similar trauma. It's more prevalent than I ever imagined. And I'm sure many of you in this crowd can relate. If not you, maybe your best friend, your coworker, the person who sits beside you on the bus, just anywhere, honestly. So, with my film, I decided this is what I was going to focus on, because obviously this is something that has stuck with me. So I started with a mission statement. It reads, I want to spread awareness of what this trauma is and what it does to someone. I want to pierce the viewers of this film with deep-rooted, gut-wrenching empathy, and I want people who have experienced this to know they are not alone. Okay, so I dropped a lot of heavy stuff on you, but let's just get back to the fun concepting process, or what I'd call the evolution. So to recap, all this emotion, it came before the project, and I didn't just make something visually cool first and then try to attach this feeling to it later. There's a lot of, upfront work and trauma processing that happened before I ever put pen to paper. So, shout out to my super cool therapist. Yay, therapy. Yeah, she was actually really helpful, honestly. She was the one who encouraged me to channel emotion through my artwork and help me sift through my trauma at the same time, which kind of helped me uncover these old memories. So yeah, it's very special. So back in late 2019, I took those emotions and poured them into this mood board that you see here. This is the visual direction that we netted out with. And as you can see, it has a really dramatic, emotional pull, and it's much different than that portfolio work that I showed you earlier. And I also love that this would mesh with my inkling of wanting a challenge, something to switch up my visual style, perhaps something darker and more intricate. I also knew I wanted it to feel more cinematic than my normal graphic illustration look, which probably has something to do with proving myself to my bullies or something. It kind of just, it's all a thread that ties together. So it's all fun and games and pretty mood boards until you have to write a script from scratch, draw pretty pictures, and then make them move. It's really overwhelming thinking about that long road ahead, but I just had to drop all of that for a minute and clear my head and focus on the task at hand. I knew I wanted my story to pierce the viewers with a gut punch. So after some thinking, I decided that there should be a voiceover, something that the viewers could really feel in that narrator's voice. They wanted to feel gut-wrenching, and I think a lot of that comes through in the emotion. But I also knew I didn't really want it to be dialogue. I just wanted it to feel like someone kind of telling you their story, like a poem or someone reading something that they wrote. So I reached out to my writer friend, Neremi Firebrace, and she helped me write this poem for the film. It's actually really refreshing to have someone else's perspective during this process, because I feel that when I'm too close to something, I'm never really happy with it. So we worked on the script together and came up with something that felt right, something that was true to her experience, which was slightly different from mine, and also my experience. And from this incredible poetic script became the official name of the project, Between Lines. Woo! Thank you. When we finally got the script in a good place, I laid this all out in a storyboard in Photoshop, and that also gives me anxiety, you know, just the like tiny words with like the, oh God, I can't. It's so hard to start a storyboard without help. You know, when I worked at studios, I'd always have at least one person there as a sounding board. And I personally process things by saying them out loud, so it was really tough to put pen to paper alone in my studio. So, you know, there were lots of snacks, coffee breaks, online shopping. I just couldn't focus, you know. I think I kind of had to do things in like quick 10-minute spurts. It's really not easy to pour your personal story onto paper. So one thing that really helped with my intimidating blank page syndrome was to start by writing out a sentence for each frame instead of sketching. Was that me? So what did I want to happen visually in each moment, and how did that correlate with the poem or the script that my friend wrote? So this helped me a lot because it removed the pressure of illustrating a nice composition, just let me think conceptually, and it also pushed me to develop a really meaningful story before getting caught up in the visuals. Another thing I wanted to try because I was stuck, obviously this took me a while, I just started non-sequentially. So for me, it was essential to go where my inspiration took me. I started designing this particular frame right here because it felt like a pinnacle moment in the story, a frame that would kind of motivate the rest of the piece. And more importantly, it was the section I was most excited about. So I know we had some speakers here earlier talking about, you know, go with your gut, go with what you're feeling at the time, and that will help you get stoked about your passion. So that's kind of what I did here. You know, obviously you know this, when you have a passion project, you have no client, no deadline, no rules. You can do things differently than you would on a normal day-to-day. You have a lot more flexibility when you can jump around from piece to piece. So it was really nice to do that. And then eventually we kind of laid out the storyboard frames, obviously. There's like some words in there still, but it was enough to get started. So I actually had help from illustrator Sarah Wong with a couple of these frames here, frames like 14 and 15 and 12. So this was probably about like 1 to 2 months of me going back and forth on things, reworking the timing, adding scenes, etc. And then, you know, obviously reached out to Sarah Wong because I was struggling with some spots. So it was hard, but I actually was still adding in scenes until like 2 months ago, maybe. And this is like from 2019, so there's a lot going on. So once I had the mood board and storyboard down, I started to play around by just making this like Instagram style illustration. That way, if I didn't want to use it for my film, I could just put it somewhere else. So I really enjoyed playing around with the shadows and the texture here. I felt like it was a good start. And I was pretty happy with it, so I tried to apply it to that first frame that I worked on, the moment that felt really pinnacle from my storyboard. This moment is supposed to be when the protagonist falls into the abyss of her anxiety. She's being bullied by these girls who used to be her friends. Sound familiar? And then she feels this like overwhelming pressure, like she's drowning. So I called all of these underwater scenes the anxiety world of the film. And this is my second exploration. You know, there are a lot of things I liked about this. Sorry guys. There are a lot of things I liked about this, but I did not like the creepy jellyfish. It was a little suggestive, so I was like, I don't know if we're gonna use that. But what I did like about it were like the fine lines, the bubbles, the character design of the girl at least, and the lighting and the texture. But, you know, her pose didn't really feel like that crushing anxiety feeling. She feels too peaceful here. She kind of feels like she's floating. And since the fish around her have these like big, curious eyes, it kind of felt more cartoony, which is not really the vibe I was going for. They were kind of detracting from the overall mood of the scene and pulling the attention away from our hero. So I kept my process loose and I gave it another go. I liked that this felt more surreal and epic, like she was plunging into the scary depths of this dark world. But I needed to push it even more. Her character design, she still felt like too whimsy and purposeful, and I wanted her to feel more powerless and more defeated. Plus, you know, I don't know about you, but I felt like this looked more like outer space than underwater. So I changed her pose a little bit. I added fish and floating objects from her home, and I incorporated those fine lines back in. I was super happy with it. It felt really different from the type of work that you saw earlier. And this was the first frame that I actually finished completely, and it continues to serve as a roadmap for the rest of the film's style. It was really frustrating to get the style right, but you can see how the texture, bubbles, and lines from my original exploration really carried through into the final look. So that really helped prove to me that that initial loose exploration phase is really important and helpful. You just gotta trudge through the mud to get to the good stuff. So now that I had all these broad strokes laid out in front of me, the concept, the script, the storyboard, I knew that it would be a huge endeavor to take this on alone. I felt like I was in over my head, and I knew personally from experience that the most successful animation projects typically have a large team of people working together to create something even better than their individual talents, which is something Dottie touched on earlier. So yeah, very, very good point. So I needed creative partners to bring my story to life, people who specialized in this type of animation, and who better to bring on than some of my friends. So in order to tell you more about this, I'd like to bring up those partners now. Meet Taylor, Yontz, and Rebekah Hamilton. So Taylor's the animation director on this project, and Rebekah is our producer extraordinaire.
That's me. I'm Taylor. I felt like if Sarah was going to show a picture of her in 7th grade, I might as well do the same. I was in Taekwondo.
Very nice.
That's my husband. He's a very sweet man. Those are our 2 cats. It's a little background. I'm a freelance 2D and 3D animator and director, and I've been animating since about 2006, some of my work.
Pretty cool.
Oh, I'm also the animation director on the team. These are a few of the shots that I am currently animating, working on.
I feel like I'm like blocking it, but.
Oh, and Taylor is actually a black belt, so just watch out.
It's true, actually.
Yeah.
She really is.
I'm Rebekah Hamilton. I have the honor of producing this project. This is me at 12. We've come far, hopefully. I have a cat, and I have a tray, and a dog. And my dog loves Taylor more than me, and it's very sad. No, just kidding. We're good. Don't. I started out as an animator, actually, in a past life, which I mentioned earlier. There's my walk cycle, I guess. There's a reason I quit. And now I get to produce wonderful projects for all kinds of studios. And for this project specifically, I'm resourcing, project planning, submitting to festivals, and then hopefully providing some moral support for everybody.
So everything that Sarah Beth has shown you guys so far is very lovely. So what are Rebekah and I doing here?
Sarah built a wonderful foundation of storytelling, but it needed a practical backbone, right? So this is where we come in as animation director and producer.
So a philosophy that Rebekah and I share is thinking about the production process as a sandbox.
meaning that it has a bunch of walls and limits, especially in commercial animation, like client budgets, time constraints, all that good stuff. But hopefully a hell of a lot of room to play around in.
So, most of us are familiar with the boundaries presented in client projects, and oftentimes passion projects are viewed as more freeing than client projects because there are less creative constraints put on you as an artist. So you can do anything you want, like you're gonna create the magnum opus, it's definitely gonna be on motionographer, all of those things, yeah, no one's telling you what to do.
But I'll be the buzzkill and say that no boundaries might be the worst idea. Like Nevin said earlier, just have fun with it, kind of scares us a little bit. And I'm sure you've all heard of blank page syndrome. We've all crowded that or tackled that ourselves. But similarly, if we don't set up some boundaries and limitations to the sandbox, we're stuck with this huge beach and we're just overwhelmed with the lack of direction and the overwhelming amount of ideas.
So, metaphorically speaking, for our film, our boundaries, or our sandbox, looked a lot like helping us know where to build our castles, how big can the toys in our box be, how many friends can we invite over, and how much sand can this thing hold?
I feel like it's like right behind.
You guys get it.
Here.
Play?
We play. So for Between Lines, it was super beneficial to approach resourcing, workflow, and creative problem solving with our boundary walls in mind. So when did we want to finish? What type of team did we want to build? How long was the film? How complex is the style?
So, answering all these questions really helped us narrow in, shot by shot, on what we needed to do and how we were going to get there. It's kind of an unsexy way to look at creativity, but for our passion project, it was massively helpful. So we tried to look at our creative constraints as opportunities that would free us up, which allowed us to make our best work with clear goals and more motivation.
Yeah, so if we didn't have these, the sand would spill out everywhere, create a huge mess, leave us with a project that lasts forever, or costs way too much money, or has no cohesive creative vision, which would lead to burnout and no real finishing standard.
And boundaries just naturally exist on any passion project. We just kind of have to look around a little bit, peek, and find out where they are, and harness them, and make a plan using them. So here's what we came up with for Between Lines. We ain't got no cash money. It's a passion project, y'all. We don't have like Oreo or Coca-Cola making it rain down on this project. That's just not gonna happen. So we knew we had to work around people's schedules, people that were volunteering their time, and rely primarily on pro bono help to get things done or reduce rates. Also, all the textures. Sarah Beth challenged herself to make a really complex style. It made for an amazing looking project, but it also complicated the pipeline just a little bit, so that made the production a little bit heavier. We also knew that given the sensitive nature of the topic and wanting to have an all-women team, that we wanted to make it really small and intimate. And then more practically, we wanted to submit to the 2021 festival season, which has passed.
We didn't do that.
We did, spoiler alert.
Spoiler.
Okay, so we had the limitations defined, so I was ready to put together this rough roadmap of where we were gonna go. And as I typed it all out, I knew that we had to boil it down, our strategy, into two things, which was to stay flexible and stay organized. Because of limited funding and the busy resources, we knew we couldn't ask too much from our animators and our friends helping on this project, so we needed to stay loose on tasks, on their deadlines, and then hold our expectations of what people could contribute with open hands, as well as our goals for the project. But we also have to finish this. We can't just sit around, we want to get it done. And we also can't just hope that people are going to bust out a 2-minute film for free in the matter of months. So we needed to stay on top of every detail to get this done and stay organized. So for us, it meant building a central place to track our progress, breaking up our tasks into smaller bits, writing super clear briefs written by Sarah and helped by Taylor, and giving feedback super quickly as we could to not waste people's time, and scheduling monthly check-ins with folks just for fun and to catch up on the project.
Yeah, so we had this shiny new plan, everything seemed to be going swimmingly, but it wouldn't be a passion project without a few hiccups along the way.
Yeah. I think all the producers could agree that we've never, at least I haven't, produced a project that's never had any hiccups or a hurdle to overcome. No matter how well planned, this looks nice. But our production roadmap was great, like we see this here. But as the saying goes, even the best laid plans can become a poop fire. You've heard that one, right?
Classic
Yeah, we've all heard it. Everything started off great. People were making really good progress and really stoked about the project, and so are we. But soon enough, we had our own scope creep, right? We found out there's a large scope, and we had small amount of resources, and so our goals were starting to conflict with each other. And so we needed to we wanted to keep the team small and finish the project quickly, but it just wasn't happening. So, as we all know, we're here. Bam, a pandemic has hit us, and all over the world, all these live action productions switched to animation jobs, which is great for us. But the whole international team got super busy and burnout and mentally exhausted from, worldwide crisis. And all of a sudden, we found ourselves coming to the realization that we needed to revisit our plan and maybe tweak it a little bit. So our goals had to change. Instead of a small, intimate team that was quickly moving, we focused on making the film really great, but also sustainable.
So this meant tripling the size of our animation crew, getting some design help for Beth, and then splitting up the work on shots and making tasks smaller so that multiple people could work on things at the same time. And then we extended our deadline by an entire year. So as much of a bummer as it was to change course and slow things down, it ultimately became a strength of the project. We were able to give people more time on their shots. We were able to discover more incredible women in the animation industry, much of who are here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it gave us the time as leaders to assess steps forward with a little bit more breathing room, which is great.
So all this to say,
Here, let me get out of
yeah, you gotta see this.
Full embrace it, yeah.
Expect the poop fire, embrace the poop fire. That's what we're saying. It's giving very live, laugh, love energy. I think we could, it's a plank on the bathroom sort of situation, so keep that in mind. Oh, and now, so now we knew there was a big old dump fire, right? And we had to embrace it, and that meant creating a larger team. So because we just needed all the help we can get, honestly.
Yeah, so off the bat, I'd always wanted to create an all-women team. The main reason being I just wanted to. It was always been a goal of mine. And also in our combined years in the industry, we also noticed that there were less women in leadership roles, honestly, probably due to lack of industry connection or just not having visibility.
So this goal of Sarah's really resonated with Rebekah and I as well. So the three of us made it a priority to lift up the voices and the skills of women in the industry.
Yeah, we kind of smushed together our collective Rolodexes of women artists that we knew and admired, and we got busy recruiting. So along the way, we noticed that a lot of women who read the script or watched the animatic actually seemed to resonate with the story and our mission as well. So knowing that the team itself was a top-tier value of ours, we wanted to make sure that we also created a healthy, flexible, and enjoyable culture for everyone who signed up to link arms with us.
Yeah, so some ways that we went about making that healthy and flexible culture were giving loose deadlines on shots, letting people sign up for the shots that they were interested in working on based on what they saw on the production tracker, letting artists use literally whatever software they enjoyed most as long as it hit the style frame, breaking down tasks into smaller bits to make them more manageable so that multiple people can work on them, creating a community from afar with a private Slack channel and celebratory Zoom hangouts.
Yay. Yeah, so we started small. Yeah, just the three of us. That is a naked hot dog, yes.
That's your normal dinner, y'all.
Yeah, not usually, but when I'm working really hard, yeah, I don't know. Also, that is Taylor's cat, Felix. Or did I get it wrong? Oh, I get it wrong every time. Sorry, that's Cooper.
So then we added a couple friends to the mix, like Juan and Colin Likes. On, I think, our first Zoom with Colin, she showed up as a cloud. She didn't know how to turn it off. Apparently, she She logged on to a gunner Zoom, and you guys were all clouds. I don't know. She couldn't turn it off. We were with Cloud Colin a lot.
Yeah, we don't know what goes on over a gunner. And her team just kept growing and growing. Unfortunately, I don't think all of us have been together on one call, but this is a whole bunch of us, and you'll notice some familiar faces that are here today.
So for context, this is where we started with our team, and then after all the poop fires and pivoting and project updates, we expanded our team to include over 30 women. Yeah, actually, I counted yesterday. I'm pretty sure, like, including us three, there's 11 of us here. So you might see some familiar names up there.
Yeah, take a picture of that list.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
So we had our team, but we had to get down to business because there was a lot to animate. So as you can see, our film has a very, very heavily rendered textural style. Thank you, Sarah. It's beautiful.
Sorry.
But that means that it's bound to be pretty compositing heavy. This is definitely not a mobile film, so kind of pushing it beyond that. So the lighting, the atmosphere, the textures really help to give it a lot of depth, feel really lived in, emotional, but it obviously presents us with technical boundaries. So I want to jump into a few of our process videos. So here for this shot, Sarah Beth wrote up a brief, added some style frames for the shots that needed to be animated. We wrote up some animation direction with some specs. I shot some video reference on my iPhone. Camille Vincent took that and roughed it out in Flash. Here's a look at her process from roughs, tie downs, color, textures. Jasper Hilgers, who is here, did some lovely compositing work on that to push it into this look. Some water and fish animation done by Colin Likes. And here's the final look of this shot.
Yeah, props to them. Looks awesome.
Yeah. Good job, ladies. Taya Glad did this entire shot herself. So she did all of this in Flash. Took that into Photoshop, added some shadows, some texture work, and then did a teensy bit of matting and compositing in After Effects. But that was a one-woman team.
Yeah.
Taya.
Sweet.
This one was roughed by Esther Chung and then cleaned up in After Effects by Ina Tiberco. I don't know if you've ever seen somebody clean up a rough cell frame-by-frame shot in After Effects, but now you have. Shape layers.
Yeah, and plugins, right?
Yeah, you can do anything.
Got some BOA in there.
So an incredible resource that we had on the film was obviously Colin Likes herself, but it was this fish rig that she made for us. So she modeled a fish in Cinema 4D, textured it to basically look like a style frame that Sarah Beth had created. And then I will jump into a little bit of nerdy specifics, and if it confuses you, just don't listen to me. So she rigged a box to an IK chain, and then rigged the fish with a mesh deformer. And the mesh deformer basically looks at that box and deforms how the box deforms. And then we could click the IK tag, change how dynamic that rig was, and it gave us automatic overlapping action, which allowed us to position and rotation animate the fish in 3D space, render it out as a luminance channel, and then get what looked like a cleaned up frame-by-frame fish in 3D.
It's very floppy.
Solid. So we used that fish everywhere. Here's one place that we plopped it in. So Sarah Beth shot some reference footage of how an anxious fish would move. Colin animated that in Cinema 4D to the reference. Yino Juan then took that animation and animated a net to it, so went a little backwards based on people's availability. And then Antoine Eugene and Michelle Greppo did some beautiful compositing work, which Michelle is here today.
Yeah, Michelle's here.
Beautiful. Yes. So as you can see, with no strict pipeline or software requirements, we're able to do what our team is good at and choose who should work on what shots motivated by their skills. This helps us stay within our sandbox, but still explore to the edges of the four walls.
Yeah, so, ooh, hi. I don't know, I keep moving.
We're dancing.
So yeah, you see all these beautiful pieces of animation and you can really see how far we've come, you know? It's been a very mind-blowing, inspiring, frustrating, rewarding, and tough project to work on, you know, but we still have a little bit of ways to go.
Yeah, we're wrapping up the film with gorgeous sound and composing by Jen Paik, who's here today. Go, Jen!
Yeah, she also did the voiceover.
Oh, and she's providing the voiceover. You should hire her. Just a little plug. The design work is finally done, thanks to Sarah and a few other designers. But that means we still have some completely unanimated shots that need to be touched and completed. And then we'll push the festival to festivals all over the place.
So, creating a 2-minute film during a pandemic with a very large international crew in a heavily rendered style, while pretty much everyone on board has full-time or freelance work coming in, has not been a task for the faint of heart.
Yeah, so, you know, by embracing the constraints that we're faced with, rather than getting bogged down by them, we were able to open our minds to new possibilities and new creative workflows that we haven't traditionally explored in past experiences.
Yeah, and though our path forward has become a little oddly shaped, it's actually become more defined over time, and the adaptive ways of thinking have helped us stay focused and left us with more opportunities for collaboration and tag teaming.
Yeah, so you guys remember this image from earlier? I was telling you my story. A lot of times I can get caught up in the creative process and kind of forget where this all started. But when I kind of take a step back and I look at it with fresh eyes, I realize that the inkling that was once traumatic and painful has now evolved into something healing and beautiful. Something that once actually tore me apart from other women has now opened the door for safer connection. And on top of giving us the opportunity to create something visually engaging, this project has also been a big source of support and healing for everyone. And because of the incredible community we've surrounded ourselves with, we're getting pretty close to the end of our journey. So we'd like to end this presentation with an actual teaser trailer to hold you over while we bring this baby into the 2022 festival season. So let's start.